Welcome back. We're going to look at the low points for the Minnesota Wild. You know, the 2000 expansion, which was Minnesota and Columbus, neither team's really had a lot of success. And it's odd because both of them were pretty good coming out of the gate, and I think they've both been run well. They just haven't had a lot of success when it comes to the postseason. And I think Minnesota and Columbus, you can both argue, are success stories as expansion teams. And yet here we are, 20 years later, and we're still waiting on a Stanley Cup final appearance from either of them. But Minnesota does have a conference finals appearance, though that was in 2003. So for Minnesota and Columbus fans both, it's highly likely they're going to be just wanting to see some kind of level of success, which is why Minnesota fans are understandably excited about Kaprizov coming over and playing for them this coming fall, which is, fingers crossed, going to happen. Now, for jersey, I went with this one. I honestly, I don't think there's an ugly jersey for Minnesota, so while I go with the ugly jerseys for each team, from Minnesota, and then the next video in this series would be Montreal, there really isn't like an ugly jersey. And of course, this is a Nino Niederreiter jersey, which that's a guy who might have qualified as a lost asset, but I don't put him in the same category as the other two. So most losses, Nicholas Backstrom, 142. To be honest, I was glad when he retired because you'd hear stuff about Backstrom, and I go, well, which one? The one in Washington or the one in Minnesota? And it seemed like I was the only one confused by that because their names, same. So, right, Nicholas Backstrom, 142 losses. Maybe it's the same guy. Maybe this is why he belongs in the Hall of Fame because he was able to play goaltender for one team and a forward for the other. Now, in the lost asset category, Darcy Kemper to me qualifies only because of this. You look at Dubnyk, you look at Stalock currently. Dubnyk's been a good starter. Stalock had a good year this year, but if they'd been able to make Darcy Kemper work out in Minnesota as he has in Arizona, who knows, right? They would have been able to move Dubnyk. Probably wouldn't have had Stalock, or Stalock may have been there as the backup. So that to me qualifies as a lost asset. And Marian Gaborik. Gaborik was the early face of the franchise. He had massive injury problems the last year on his contract, and then as a UFA, he left and went to the Rangers. To me, it's a lost asset because if they've been able to move his rights before the deadline, if they've been able to get something back for him, who knows, right? So yeah, to me, Marian Gaborik qualifies as that lost asset, and he was their first real star player. Believe me, as a Canuck fan, I saw that in 03. Guys was really, really good in his heyday, and of course, he did win a Stanley Cup in LA after. Short-term coach, Dean Evason, the current coach of the team, interim coach, record of 8-4 under Everson. I think when you've got a coach that's won 8 out of 12 games, I think you give him a chance to stick around. So I think for Bill Guerin, I think honestly their record has shown that maybe Evason should stick around, and at the very least, give him a look, see what happens. Not in the Hall of Fame. This is kind of funny. So Gaborik's not retired. I'm going to say straight out, Gaborik's not retired. It has to be a player who's retired, highest on their points list. And so the highest on their points list of a player that's retired in Minnesota Wild history is Pierre-Marc Bouchard. I can't even try to make an argument that Pierre-Marc Bouchard belongs in the Hall of Fame. So they haven't really had a lot of players that you would look at and say Hall of Fame quality. I would say of the guys that are on the roster currently. Maybe you could argue it for Eric Stahl, but really, in all honesty, how many of them are Hall of Famers? Suter, maybe. And again, with Suter, that's just it's a maybe. And we'll see, right? Nicholas Backstrom is the highest wins total on the team's history in general, so he gets in there as not in the Hall of Fame. I don't see him as a Hall of Fame goaltender either. But Backstrom was pretty good. Backstrom was one of the more underrated goaltenders. And I have to say, of all of the teams in the NHL, Minnesota's really, really stable when it comes to their goaltending. So while I can point to Darcy Kemper and say that may be the lost asset, in general, they've been very stable with their goaltending. And yet, some great names with those goaltenders. So their longest drought was from 2009 till 2012, which was 4 seasons. So again, they don't miss the playoffs for like 5+ years in a row. They don't go through really long, dramatic rebuilds. But there are Minnesota fans who will argue that that's been the problem. They haven't really torn it down. They haven't really picked up those top-notch, big prospects. And they just haven't been able to build that team that's going to be a contender. Year 1, 2000, 2001. 25 wins, 39 losses, 13 overtime losses, and 5 ties. 68 points. 68 points for them. Or no, I believe that's 13 ties and 5 overtime losses. Sorry, I got that backwards. People will correct me. Anyways, 2011-2012 is year 11. 35, 36, and 11. 81 points. Of course, like I said, in 2003, they went to the conference finals on the skill of Jacques Lemaire and on the amazing goaltending they had. They have always had pretty good goaltending in Minnesota. They had, of course, Rolison reinvented his career there. Fernandez, McLennan. There's been a lot of really good goaltenders that have gone through there. And yes, Jamie McLennan, when he was in Minnesota, put up decent numbers. Now, lowest points percentage against any one team, Philadelphia, 385 winning percentage. Goals for per game, their lowest. Again, the Flyers show up 2. They score 2 goals a game against the Philadelphia Flyers. Highest goals against per game, Detroit. So 3.18 goals against per game. That is the highest of any team that they've played. So maybe they're happy that Detroit's in the East now, not their division, and they don't have to worry about it. But in reality, Minnesota they need a run. They need to go on a run. There are franchises you look at and say, gee, that team needs a Stanley Cup. That team needs a final. These guys need some kind of a Final Four run, something to get the fan base really energized. Because the fans are always going to be there in Minnesota, the state of hockey, right? But they need something to get really excited about. So Kaprizov may very well be that let's get excited moment for them. Now, lowest points per game, anybody who's played 100 games or more. This is going to be your enforcers and your defensive defensemen. Brad Brown, .043 points per game is the lowest. Bugard, .055, of course. Absolute total enforcer there. Brad Staubitz, .079. Alex Henry, .082. And Benasek. And I like Benasek, but .094 because name's fun to say. Lowest save percentage, minimum of 50 games played. This is where you see their goaltending's been pretty solid the whole way through. Their lowest save percentage among any goaltenders who have played 50-plus games is Alex Stalock with a .909. So that's pretty good. Darcy Kemper, .910. Fernandez had a .914. And Backstrom, .915. So those are your lowest. So keep in mind, you have to have played a minimum of 50 games. They've kept their goaltenders around for a nice long time. Because one thing that's interesting, and again, this is supposed to be a low points video, but it is interesting to point out, they've only had 18 goalies overall. That includes goaltenders who played 1 game. They've had 18 goaltenders in their entire history. Philadelphia could really, definitely learn a thing or two from this franchise. Maybe they have, because they got Carter Hart, and looks like things have stabilized in Philadelphia's net. Kaapo Kakkonen is a goalie with the best name, I think, although Dieter Kokken, that's a great name. Zach Bjork is going to be on this board when he shows up for a team's history. And Wade Dublowicz. Wade Dublowicz was honestly, I thought, an underrated goalie in his time and a greatly underrated name. So he gets on the board as goalie with the best name. 4. That's 22% of the goalies that have played for Minnesota. 4 of them are on this board because I was like, yeah, no, all those names are great. I'm going to throw them all up there. So again with Minnesota, they've never been that bad. They've never been a team that's been absolutely miserable. They haven't had the kind of season that Detroit's having now or Ottawa has had for the last couple of years. The kind of year that Colorado had before everything turned around. They haven't really had that absolutely miserable season. In my eyes, even their expansion year, 25 wins, that's not bad. 25 wins as an expansion team isn't bad. I know everybody's going to say, what about Vegas? Yeah, they had different expansion rules in 2000 than Vegas had in 2016. So, or 2017, sorry. But it's really apples to oranges when you're comparing what these guys had to pick from and what Vegas had to pick from. And they did pretty well with what they had. It's a team that was built around defense, that was built around goaltending. It has always felt like Minnesota's built around defense and around goaltending. And we'll see whether or not, with Kaprizov coming in, if things start to change. Again, under Evason, 8-4. I would think he sticks around. We'll see what happens with him this summer if he does stick around. I think he's earned it. I do. And it seems like the players enjoy playing for him. And that's a big thing now is he a player's coach? And if a guy's a player's coach, he's highly, highly likely to stick around. Minnesota, though, it is definitely a thing. They need to make sure that they're building towards a championship. And I think the one downbeat of this is they've never really felt like they're on the verge of a championship. Can they get there? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.